the Asian Pacific Islanders Research Interest Group promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in science education research involving learners of Asian and Pacific Islander heritage. It also serves as an intellectual network to support and mentor emerging Asian Pacific Islander scholars in the global science education community, as well as all NARST members who are interested in API interest research endeavors. So we do have a lot of friends and colleagues other than just API scholars. So welcome everyone. It is not just a space for only for API scholar. All the ally and colleagues are welcomed in this space.
Thank you. Yeah. I just started recording. It's because a few people have asked for a recording because they wanted to be here, but they couldn't be here. So I just started recording. So I will just talk a little bit about the history of API. It's a really short history. It's very new. So in recent years, equity, diversity, and inclusion has been a very, very prominent topic theme in the educational as well as many other fields in the United States. But however, Asian and Pacific Islanders are very often left out in the conversation. And also during the COVID-19 pandemic, instances of Asian hate just intensify the discrimination towards Asian American in the United States. So in 2021, Dr. Liang, if Dr. Liang is here, and Dr. Liu, they initiated this API group. And in 2022, the API group had a first business meeting, virtual business meeting during the NARST conference. And then this past April, the API group had its first in-person business meeting and also administrative session. Dr. Oki Lee, I know you are here, was the very first keynote speaker for the business meeting. And I would like to say, inspired for this API scholars like Dr. Lee, Dr. Liang, and Dr. Liu, who made themselves available and visible to the science education community. Dr. Kang and I, we inspired by these API scholars, we have planned for a series of virtual events. These are the more informal and very low entry, easy access for people from all over the world to join. So we hope to extend the API Scholar network and also strengthen the science education research related to API issues. Okay, I just want to point out there are 83 people registered, and this from 22 countries from all over the world. This is such a diverse group and within the API community. And also I think this really indicates the need for the API scholars as well as all science education scholars who are interested in API related issues, to connect, to work together, to meet API students and educators' needs. We when we are seeking commonalities and connections among us, we also want to respect different perspectives, because within each APS community, it's really diverse community. There are a lot of country and different social cultural contexts. Just respecting each different perspectives also. Okay. So yeah.
Personally, my take on of this space is that it's relating to my personal experience. Whenever I go to the NARST, I always feel like I'm I'm not the part of the community, and it's difficult for me to navigate the space. But then turned out there's actually a lot of colleagues who shared a lot of similar kinds of research interest, and there's a lot of other colleagues who does really good work. But API scholars doesn't necessarily always share what they are thinking. So I hope this is a space for you to make at least one friend. If you come to this API network, you can find one science researcher that you can be connected. So you can find one science friend. That's what I personally hope that you can get. So we do have series of webinar. This is our very first webinar, Amplifying the Voice of API Scholar. And then we have 2 follow-up webinars. So I hope you continue to join us and continue to be part of the conversation and movement. Next slide.
And we're working on a call for abstracts for the administrative session next year at NARST conference. So the call should be going out really soon, possibly early next week, I'm hoping. So keep an eye on that. And we are hoping to see a lot of, abstracts and proposals for this special session.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, this is our agenda for today. We're right on time. So we'll have 2 established API scholars, followed by a 10-minute Q&A, and then we'll have the junior API scholar panel discussion, followed by a breakout room discussion and the wrap up. So without further ado.
All right, so I am honored to introduce Dr. Edna Tan, Hooks Distinguished Professor of STEM Education at University of North Carolina and Greensboro. And Edna originally from Singapore, and she got PhD in science education in Columbia University. And also she got the postgraduate diploma in education, Nanyang Technology University. So, and also I met Edna when I was at Michigan. She's such a great colleague and human being. So I'm so happy and honored to introduce her. And her research is focused on equity, social justice. Could you go back, Edna's slide?
I'm trying to go back and, oh, yeah.
Yeah, her research is focused on justice-oriented STEM teaching and learning across context. I am sure you read a lot of her work if you are studying about youth identities and science education work in out-of-school space and also in school space. So Edna, welcome you. Could you stop sharing?
Okay,
so
yes,
I will.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Hosan. That was really kind. I'm really excited to be here. I want to acknowledge our elder, Dr. Okidi. Thank you so much for being the trailblazer that you are, that we all look up to you. And this group coming into fruition is really a labor of love, and it took a long time. Right, so I want to sit with that. I also want to think about I want to think about how Hosan and singing has sort of framed the purpose and ideals and hopes of this group. I always grapple with myself, what is it about us as API scholars in STEM education that we want to consider in authoring our own rightful presence, right? So as Hosan said, and I think all of us have had those kinds of fleeting moment feelings when you're at NARST, oh, I don't really feel as if this is my space, right? So there is this shadow, right, that we don't really belong in this space, yet most of us are trained in Western science, right? We have been enculturated in the Western science, but there is a very thick, right, atmospheric wall that says, maybe this is not your space, right? So there is that. And then a lot of us also engage in justice-oriented work, right, where we work with students and populations that are minoritized by other markers that we do not share. So how do we become an ally, right? And in those kinds of, in the research that we do. And for me, I think that those 2 questions are entangled, right? It's difficult to think about our own positionality as API scholars within the fields of STEM and within the fields of STEM education, separate from what we do in our research, in STEM and in STEM education. So I just want to put that dilemma out there. I don't have many answers. This is what I'm thinking about. And Hosan did give us a really big prompt. So Bhaskar and I are running with it. Talk about your story, your journey as an API scholar. The other thing I want to acknowledge at the outset is that the API community has suffered a tragedy, right? If some of you may know, one of our colleagues was murdered at UNC Chapel Hill. He was a young associate professor in applied physics, applied sciences. So he's our community. And the graduate student who allegedly murdered him is also from our community. So I also want to acknowledge that, right? That violence is something that we also face in our community. And that is something that is difficult to think about, but so relevant to what we're talking about today, both as our own rightful presence as scholars and the rightful presence we try to build, right, with the populations and the colleagues and the youth that we work with. Okay, I'm keeping time. So I want to steal a format from a scholar that I heard recently that I really admire. I want to tell the story of my journey, my story that is still going on as an API scholar in 3 ways. So the first is my personal story. And I think for me, identities are salient to my epistemological, ontological, and axiological axis as an API scholar in STEM ed. Right, the first is my nationality, right? Nested within the historicity of colonialism. So I'm second generation Chinese Singaporean, and my motherland just celebrated her 58th year of independence from the Brits, right? But our educational and governmental systems are built on and very much mirror the British system. So what that means for me is that I was taught and enculturated into Western science from the get-go, right? And so the norms of white male heterosexual patriarchy was the norm for me as a child throughout my science education, right? All the way to my honors year. And nothing seemed to be problematic. Again, that is the thing about enculturation, right? Until I was in my honors year in a laboratory where the identity that became prominent to the foreground and oppressive was that of an undergraduate, so the lowest in the totem pole in the laboratory, and a female, right? So the female and an undergraduate, really bad positionality. All the people in my lab were male. Most of them weren't Singaporeans. So I spent a lot of time in the laboratory, not just taking care of my own experiments, but also taking care of other people's experiments, because as you can imagine, right, with the power structure. So that was kind of like my personal introduction into, oh, so actually science and the way science is done and taught and expectations are not the same for everyone, right? So fast forward, ditched the laboratory, decided I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. I was sleeping in the lab, taking care of experiments. So, but science is my identity, one of my identities. So I went to teach science for 6 years and then decided that my brain was rotting, and then went to graduate school and have been here since then. So this is the second story, right? Of me as a member of API STEM education scholars. So this story is also imbricated with my personal story, right? In thinking about science education, we as API scholars have to contend with, now that we are all in the United States, right? So some of us are citizens, Asian Americans, a lot of us are immigrants, right? And those two identities are really distinct, right? And our experiences are really diverse in that way. But regardless, we are all under the umbrella because of the virtue of the fact that geographically we're doing our work in the States, and of how we look and how we present, right? We fall prey to the model minority trope, right, from dominant culture. And so fall prey to the model minority, we have been labeled as the least problematic group of people of color. We have been labeled as honorary whites, when it suits the purpose of white supremacy. So model minority, least troublemaker of people of color, honorary whites, and also at the same time, perpetual foreigners. You are the perpetual foreigner, right? And so when we look at these labels, it's really hard to think about where your allyship with whom is going to look like, okay? So to complicate that, because we are in the field of STEM education, Asians are overrepresented in STEM professional fields, okay, in the States. Asians are also overrepresented within the group of faculty of color. Within faculty of color, Asians are the most overrepresented. And therefore, it gives these statistics, gives the impression that nothing, like Asians are not oppressed in any way, right? Either in STEM fields or in academia, because, hey, look at the numbers. But when you pass the numbers and you look at the positions and you look at the leadership, then it is overwhelmingly apparent, right, that those leadership positions are still held by your white middle-class male. Okay. However, because of the entanglement and the messiness of justice-oriented issues, right, with communities of color, right, and other markers, right, able or disabled, able-bodied or bodies with disabilities, I should say that, right, cisgender, LGBTQ issues. When dominant culture colleagues who are well-meaning, and this is part of my experience, when they look across all these groups of people who are unfairly treated, it can be overwhelming for the white allies because they don't know how to prioritize. And sometimes it becomes a really ill-informed exercise of ranking oppression, right? Who within these groups are the most oppressed, because we have limited resources and we need to take care of the ones that are most oppressed, right? And there is a warped sense of logic when you think about that with scant resources. But again, the complexity is that when you zoom out, this kind of narrative of it being lack of resources, therefore we have to rank who we can help, in the end, just fosters the competition, right, between groups of color, which is what the white dominant culture wants. So all this may seem really 30,000 foot, but it plays out in academia, it plays out in STEM. And we have to, or I have to, I think for myself, become well-informed, well-educated, and clear-eyed about what it is, in which arena, in which figured world that I'm in, that I'm doing in terms of allyship, because they all imbricate, they are all entangled. So what has this got to do with me personally as the API scholar, right, professor right now? So I'm always, when I'm working with white dominant culture colleagues, I'm always positioned as the sidekick. It doesn't matter the authorship order. So how this plays out is that I was at a conference with an older white woman student. She was my student. But when we walked up to the conference, she was assumed to be the professor, right? And this happened many times over. So you can say that, oh, right, that's microaggression. I might feel a little bit slighted, but it's also kind of like, yeah, well, you know, this is the land of the white male, and so what do you expect? How much of these experiences matter in how we think and what we say and do in the moment that can either solidify, right, or start to niggle and push back at these kinds of larger narratives, right? Another example being the safe faculty of color, because now I'm a professor, I have tenure, so people think that, oh, now we can send you out to be the risky person. So being a safe faculty of color, right? Because recall the labels, the model minority, the least troublemaker, until people get to know me, then they know, oh yeah, this doesn't really apply to her. But then there's like this holiday period where we think that, oh, Edna will behave herself until they regret that they put me on something. But Asian faculty members are often fronted as, here, you go and serve on this committee at your university, in the field and whatever, and it's as if they have covered the entire spectrum, right? And as Hossan and Xingying said earlier on, just within the umbrella of API, there is so much diversity. And within each sliver of the pie chart that they showed us of the people who sign up, right, for this webinar, across the whole circle pie, we may share some bones of oppression, but the fleshly manifestations in kind and degree are very, very different, very, very contextualized, even within that pie chart. So then when you think about how are we allying ourselves, right, with citizens, with our African-American colleagues, with our Latinx colleagues, right, and all the other groups who are and have been stepped on in some way historically in this land, then the idea of allyship, justice orientation, belonging, where do we sit in this entire fabric and terrain, is complicated, but it is important to figure out, right? So that we don't lapse into just lip service, right? Or what is it that we represent, and then we get co-opted by the white dominant narrative. So part 3 of the story, I know I'm coming on the time, right? Is I like to think about what we as a group can envision as the future of API scholars in STEM education. What do we want people to say about the culture of API scholars in STEM education? Grace Lee Boggs, she said that changing culture is a kind of is a revolution, right? So going back to where I started from, model minority, right? Least troublesome, honorary whites. I don't think we're happy with that as a group, but how do we change that culture? And it involves us looking at ourselves, our colleagues and our institutions. So I'm really looking forward to how this group, and to use one of Hosan's words, it is a movement, but it's a movement of making solutions and in everyday practices and how we can move forward together. Okay, my 10 minutes is up. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Edna. There's a lot to think, and I'm sure you have a lot of things to process. So please leave a comment or a question to the chat box so we can having a conversation later. So let's continue. We have one more scholar that we have here today. So I'm also honored to introduce Dr. Bhaskar Upadhyay, professor of University of Minnesota. Dr. Bhaskar Upadhyay, originally from Nepal, and he got PhD in science education at University of Texas, Austin. And also he got EDM in science education at Teachers College and Columbia University, New York. And he's also similarly, his research focusing on equity, social justice, and internationalization of globalization of STEM education, and also indigenous STEM education. So yeah, we are going to welcome, please join me in welcoming Dr. Upadhyay. Oh my goodness, it's so hard to pronounce his name. My apology. Bhaskar is a lot more easier for me.
Thank you, Hosan. Very kind of you. I just want to, first of all, thank the API members for inviting us here, and especially our elder Oki Lee, who has laid the groundwork for us to stand on and be able to continue. And obviously, there are many other wonderful scholars who have helped me to grow and be where I am. And I always say that it's not my personal effort that you see, it's the collective effort from everybody who have helped me, small ways, big ways. I don't know what is small, what is big, but they have contributed immensely for me to be here. So it's not an individual work. For me, it's just not personal, just my doing it. There are a lot of other people who have supported along the way. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been here. So I just want to say it really openly. And so having this API community is a tremendous opportunity for us to support each other in small ways, big ways. There are many different ways we can seek help, and hopefully we can grow our community and build a network that's really beneficial for all of us. So I just want to share a couple of things. So one of the things that I want to set the stage is that obviously Nepal is between two giant countries, both economically and population-wise. They have tremendous influence on us because of three sides of Nepal is India, and the north is Tibet, which is part of China right at the moment. And so, but on the other side is that we were never colonized by any outsiders, because the north, the Himalayas, people said, well, that's too hard, we are not going there. And then the south was infested with malaria and dense jungle, so nobody came up. So the British didn't think it was worthwhile going there. So we're kind of cocooned in this place, and people migrated or moved from different places, but we never became colonized from another nation per se. We were different small nations within the country. To be exact, is that 46 of them, different small, how do I say this, nations, so to say. So it's a different framework for us. So one of the things is that Asia Pacific is humongous. The culture is different, languages are different, ways people's clothes are different, how they look so it's such a diverse space, and so my experience hopefully aligns with some of your experiences, and very likely for others it'll be sort of like Bhaskar, you're talking about Mars. So I apologize for that. So my journey basically is that the way I think about it is about my research and my interest is where I grew up and how I grew up. So I grew up in an indigenous community. I'm not indigenous. So that's the sort of very different. My parents moved there. To be exact, my grandparents moved there. And so, but I grew up in an indigenous community, and the many of the things, the opportunities that some of us got in terms of education, access, mobility, is a lot of times, I'll use this word now, is that a lot of times it was just that luck, which basically to me means to be at the right place, right time, right moment, whatever it is, it just happens to be there. And somehow, of the many, it could have been anybody, that you were the one who happened to get the opportunity. So, and the other part of it for me is that because family is so important, and where I grew up, the place is so important. And so it is important for me to always think about how I can be a way to support the community. And obviously, getting education is one way to go back and give back. So that's where how I frame all of the things is that they supported me when I needed support, and now it's my turn. So that's how I frame all of the things that I do. Obviously, coming to United States was quite a shock for me, both in all different ways, from food to language to how people interact to even the word what friend means uh, is really different. The education, obviously, had already talked about it, even though we were not colonized, but because India is next door, and culturally and in many ways, we have similar characters. Therefore, our education system resembles the British system, which I would say the Indian system. And so, from that perspective, coming here is very different, and how we see things, and how I have been seeing things. The other part of it is that I have to say, even though very likely, if I were a female person coming from Nepal, I would have definitely many other different experiences than being a male. but at the same time, people want to Englishize your name. They they want to shorten it, or they want to say that. So that tells me that there is this distance between who I am and the distance between who everybody else is. So in that framework, as I work in it, I always think about how do I then frame what I'm doing? And also along the way, who are the other allies, supporters that I can be part of? Therefore, my affinity to indigenous work, African American work, Hispanic work, Latino work, all of these things, and obviously API work, all of these things, what it does to me is that it allows me to, one, give me some kind of support that the work that I'm doing is important. The work that I'm doing is in some ways contributing to make lives better. And also is that I have allies, I have people who also are in the same boat and trying to do similar work. Therefore, I can rely on them in many different ways, both seen and unseen, and the navigation of both how you express things and also both in writing and speech, and also how people interact with you once they hear an accent, and especially the accent that sounds very different. And so there is hidden categorization that I experience. And so that definitely sometimes makes me wonder, is that, am I doing something that is being questioned, and questioned in such a way that it doesn't have the same value that the dominant narrative says it should have. So there is always a struggle, but there is always hope that there are so many people, all of you over here, and then there are others who are equally interested and dedicated to continue the work. And that's what makes me really happy about it. And that's what actually my journey has been, is that how can we find hope and keep on moving. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So both from Edna and Bhaskar, as I'm listening, I'm thinking a lot about my own identities, like, who I am and why I'm doing the work. And a lot of things also has a lot to do with the situation or the place where I am, the context, because currently I am in the United States. But I also acknowledge that we have a lot of colleagues who joined here outside of the United States. So I'm sure they also have different kinds of identities and questions that we have. So we have like 3 minutes that we can have some conversation. And we have later, we have another breakout room that we can help you to create some space for you to talk. But if you have any comments and question, please don't be shy. We really appreciate any reaction, comments, or question to either Edna and Bhaskar.
I resonated a lot with the experience of coming to the United States. So at that phase, like just being here, facing a lot of challenges like the language speaking, the writing, the English in every aspect, and also the cultural environment, different interactive patterns with people. Yeah. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing.
thank you for your comments. Anyone else? We think we have one more person to share thoughts or comments before we move to the junior scholar.
Hi, I'll share. I'm Jessica, and thank you, Edna and Beskar, for sharing. I guess really just both of you, what you said resonated so much with me and a lot of the things that I'm thinking about in terms of my work and just being in the science ed field, really around identity and kind of who we are as a community, but also who I am in the work that I'm doing around social justice and equity. So I just want to say thank you so much for just sharing your stories and the things that you're thinking about, just because it resonated very much with me as well.
Thank you. Yeah, all right. One more thing that really resonate with me is the kinds of discourse that we would like to create through this social movement. If we call that as a movement, we do have this model minority kinds of the label that we have been living forever. And then what is our next? What kinds of different kinds of description that we would like to create, author together as API scholars? Those are the questions that resonate with me. All right, shall we move to the junior scholar?
Sure, yeah. Okay. So I would like to just really briefly introduce our 5 junior API scholars. They are actually from at their different stages. I would say we're really happy to have all of them today. Jianlan, I think Jianlan's here. Are you here, Jianlan? Yeah, he just got promoted to associate professor and got tenure at Texas Tech University. Songwan Shim just became a tenure track assistant professor at Illinois State University. And Muhammad, I think you're here. Let me see. I'm trying to pin this panelists. Yeah, let me.
You can call me Hadi.
Hadi, okay, yeah, thank you. It's a assistant professor from Malaysia. It's another beautiful thing about this panel is we have people from outside the United States. Thank you, Hadi, for being willing to share your stories here. And we have Elena, who is a postdoctoral scholar from Canada. And then Jessica from currently is a lecturer at Teachers College at Columbia University. Okay, so I will actually post the 3 panel questions in the chat so we can stop sharing the screen so people can see your faces more clearly. Okay, I will stop share. And I will pin these panelists so they can appear in the center. Pin. Okay, I need to remove. I will remove Jennifer because it only allows so many pins. And okay, so here we go. I will also remove a few more here. Okay, so the first question is, what does it mean to be an API scholar to you? It's in the chat box. What does it mean to you to be an API scholar? We don't have a specific sequence, order. So anyone feel free to share.
So Jillian, maybe could you start?
Yes. What does it mean? I think to me it means my like it's like like identity, right? And I have my own characteristics, Asian brain, right? So I bring my own background, knowledge and mentality into my work. So and I have my unique perspectives when I do conduct educational research, and especially from the Eastern Asian perspective. For example, in core teaching, we know in science education is very is widely advocated. But we know in the Eastern Asian countries like Korea, Japan, and China, it's all lecture based. So that makes me think, because if we want to call education a profession, all the theories should have power of explanation and prediction. Apparently, education is not like that. So I try to connect the theories, because our research works to generate and revise theories. My works to tie the theories not only to the United States but to other countries internationally. So that's what it means to me as a API scholar. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. Thank you. Yeah. So Suwon, would you like to share something?
Yes. I believe everyone has very unique strengths based on their personal, cultural, and social backgrounds. And I grew up in South Korea and have studied and worked in the US. So my perceptions and practice have been shaped by my experiences in Korea and the US. And I have lived in several different settings, including schools, local communities, and workplaces or countries. And I realized that although I'm the same person, the expectations and messages I received were dissimilar depending on where I was located. So in the US, I realized that my race and ethnicity influence others' perceptions of me and other Asians in American society. And I also realized that my perspectives and assumptions often help me or prevent me from understanding other people as a whole person. So I try to be very conscious of my assumptions when I interact with students who are from various backgrounds. And I believe science educators have a critical role as a cultural broker who can help students connect their cultural experiences to science education. So to become a cultural broker, I learned that I need to broaden my knowledge about perspectives on science to embrace various students' experiences in science education. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Maybe next, Hadi.
Okay, I would like to share my slide, just a very simple slide.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, you can share.
Right. Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes.
I do slideshow. Okay, so thank you very much, Zening and Housen, for inviting me as the scholar, the junior scholar for API. You can call me Hadi. Okay. What made me feel that this event is really important is just because a very critical thing to me, because I completed PhD at the University of Minnesota in August 2017. And during my 4 years studies in the United States, I learned a lot, especially in understanding the Western culture and the people, and how to speak better for the English, and also how I should not lose my identity as an Asian. So staying in the United States, it means that I need to better adapt with the local culture, but it doesn't mean that I need to change everything about myself. So that's why I choose University of Minnesota, because before I decided to go there, I made a kind of, not to say doing research, but made some reading and searching about this university. And I think that this university is just very good in terms of have some diversity in the population, especially with the people from Africa, Somali. So many of them migrated to the United States, especially in Minnesota, especially in the Minneapolis and also the St. Paul. So I started my journey as academic in January 1st, 2018. And I published my first article in Science Education Journal, which is Cultural Studies on Science Education in March 2019. And we know that CSSE is a very good journal in terms of publishing equity-based research. So I would like to thank Dr. Bhaskar Upadhyay, because during that time, he's the guest editor for the special issue, and I got the opportunity to publish my first article in Science Education Research. So as a Malaysian who studied in the United States, I think that I learned a lot how to work better with those Western people. And until today, I think that I really appreciate what they contributed to me. So I dedicated this slide to all these three key persons, where I think that they really play their role, especially when I was a PhD student, especially my advisor, Dr. Fred Finley. He already retired from the university in 2018. And Dr. Bhaskar Upadhyay, one of our panel today, he was teaching me and my friends equity and social justice. This is just a very critical moment at that time, because I really have a very least exposure to equity and social justice, even though I was in my country before that. So I really appreciate all the knowledge and the experiences that I got from that course, that particular course. And because of that, okay, so many things came to me where I can especially become a policymaker for the ministry using the equity and social justice lens. And also to Dr. Jean Rory, because I still have interest in integrated STEM education, and I learned a lot from her involvement in STEM education research. So these three key persons, key professors at my alma mater, they really helped me to grow up as scholar in science education, particularly on the issues on equity and social justice. That's why I really appreciate what I have learned from Bhaskar Upadhyay classes back to 2014, if I'm not mistaken. So it's really nearly 10 years before previously, 3 years, 10 years in, yes, almost already 10 years. But I can well remember all what Bhaskar teaching to me, almost all. So it's really about lifelong learning, becoming a good scholar in equity and social justice. So that's all. So I think that even though I study in the US, it doesn't mean that I need to, lose my identity as an Asian. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hadi. Thank you. So let's move on to Ilana.
Hello. You can call me Ella. It is also, I like it, Ella.
Ela, okay.
Ella, more easy to say. First of all, hello everyone. I'm very happy to be meeting you today. Like I'm currently working as a postdoc at Lakehead University in Canada, but I'm originally from Turkey. So to address the question, the meaning of being an API scholar, I have been here for 6 months, and I have been experienced this old saying. Maybe you might agree that who you know might matter more than what you know. And I would like to extend this saying by adding to which community you feel a sense of belongingness. So to me, being an API scholar means being a part of a culture where I feel valued, heard, and appreciated. It means kind of a positive, personal, and professional involvement in this community, and where we all share a commonality of purpose of pursuing science research, science education research, so that we can connect with each other and learn from another. But we also have this diversity in our research interest and in our cultural backgrounds in this community, where this diversity is welcomed. So this is like what I want to say to address this question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Jessica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica, and also thank you so much for being here. And I'm just so happy to be part of the panel and also to meet everyone. So for me, being an API scholar, I think represents representation in the field where we really are kind of invisible, and also just an opportunity to shape the field as well and really contribute to who we are as API scholars, as a community. What is our identity? You know, I grew up in upstate New York. My parents are immigrants from Taiwan, so I really understand sort of the cultural border crossing, in a sense of growing up in a small town, mostly white Americans, and that being my schooling culture and culture outside of my home, but also coming back to home and having more of the Taiwanese Chinese culture very much present in my home. So, you know, I've always kind of, I think, been the model minority, the forever foreigner, and good at science, but I also have always really tried to push against that. And I've never really liked any of that. So for me, I think being an API scholar, finally being in a position where I can really shape what it actually means for us to be a community of scholars. And also for me, I'm at Teachers College, and I advise so many students who are Asian American and also international Asian students. And I've just learned so much from all of my students. And I think they absolutely gravitate towards me just because of our shared culture and who we all are. And I think, you know, that's very, very much inspired me to kind of also think more deeply about who we are as scholars and how I can be a better role model and a better advisor and mentor for the students that I have now.
Thank you so much. Thank all of you for sharing that. Okay, so I'm posting 2 questions now. Because they're related. What's the concern or challenge you have, and what did you find useful or helpful in navigating these challenges? Because we have limited time, we may not get to every one of you for this question. We have another question. So let's see how it goes. Yeah. Anyone wants to volunteer to start?
Okay, I can go first because I think that
you.
we maybe share this in the same challenge. Being invisible, like I will share one story. You know, one year I won you know, 2 NSF grants, and you know, typically in College of Education or in our department, if someone is secured a you know, external grant or federal grant, there would be like congratulations, you know, email. But there's nothing, you know, about me. All right. So you know, I just feel like, all right, you know, sometimes my colleagues even win a statewide. I'm not saying that a statewide grant is less important, but there will be a congratulations, you know, email from the dean, from their department chair, etc. But that year I won 2 NSF. I got no, you know, I got no nothing. Right. So I think also because I feel like as an Asian in a scholar, we are a little bit conservative. Like we try to keep our opinions to ourselves, and especially to me, like you know, like in Chinese culture, you have to wait for seniors to finish your talking before you can chime in, right? So if you don't talk out loud, you lose a chance. You never be able to talk, right? So my how do I get through this? I'll just try to, you know, try to fit in, try to learn the rules, or try to, you know, make changes yourself. Right, so you cannot just wait. If you want, if you have something you know, you're in that concerns you, just talk out loud. You know, be willing to share your opinions, share your thoughts, right? And also I think that's pretty much, I can say something later because I learned time limit. Right.
Thank you, Jilan. Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that.
I can share one of my challenge. As I mentioned before, I think it is very important to challenge the monocultural view of science education and integrate various views into science lessons. So as an instructor, I emphasized cultural aspects in science education in my courses. However, I often encountered pre-service teachers who could not see the value of integrating cultural views into their science lessons when I first introduced this concept. But at the end of the semester, they were able to understand how cultural and social aspects can actually influence their science teaching and students' learning. But I was wondering if you also have a similar experiences. In terms of the navigating the challenges, I just started my new position this semester, and I was invited to several Asian communities where I can interact with other API professors. So connecting with the professors who have more experiences and research experiences and learning from them were very helpful in navigating challenges and settling into a new community. So connecting with Asian community in my institution was very helpful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anyone else wants to chime in for this challenges and how you navigate through the challenges?
Yeah, I think I can share some of the stories. When I first learned about the concept of funds of knowledge in the course of equity and social justice back to 2014, and I tried to bring that idea to my colleagues in my university in Malaysia. They're actually not really familiar with that. But for me, as scholars in equity and social justice, it's very good for us to bring forward the agenda, because that's how the way we can appreciate the local wisdom and how we not really say that we are totally or much depends on the Western people, okay, to form or to kind of influence the way we see science education at the global stage. So that's why I regularly now make some visits to other countries, especially in Thailand, especially also in Indonesia, to ensure that they can bring forward the agenda of equity and social justice and appreciate their local wisdom and believe that they can do better, they can do well as well as their counterpart in the, let's say, in the United States. So I feel that the people, especially in the ASEAN regions, the Southeast Asia, sometimes they feel that they are quite inferior to those people in the Western people, in the Western nations. So I try to kind of reminding them or try to build their confidence that we can do better in science education research by probably working together as a team or in any coalition or a kind of alliance in science education. Maybe to start with 2 or 3 countries as a small start, but we try to do better in terms of how we can acknowledge the work, the local wisdom in each of this nation. So that's why I now regularly visit to Indonesia, to Thailand, to promote funds of knowledge. Even though when I try to ask them, I ask them who want to make this research in the future, no one wants. So I don't know why this equity and social justice research has a very least number of researchers at large, especially in the ASEAN regions. And that's why I think many works to do in terms of convincing those people to include or to do research in equity and social justice. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I was trying to talk about culturally relevant science teaching at Beijing, Beijing Normal University a few years ago, and they said, these are the master students for teachers, and they said, oh, this is cool, this is good. but we have to prepare for students for the exam. We don't have time to do any of that. I guess, yeah, I feel that. Thank you. Okay, so I will post the last question. We have 7 minutes, 7 to 8 minutes. So if you still want to talk about the second question, challenge, and how you navigate, you can still talk about that. You can, if you want to talk about the last question, what do you wish for the NARST or API community, you can talk about it. It's totally up to you.
Hi, yeah, I guess, yeah, I'll speak to both questions. I think, kind of continuing on with
Yeah.
trying to get culturally relevant teaching and these ideas of like teaching into cultures and backgrounds of students. And, I at Teachers College, it is very much part of our agenda and our mission. But I also work a lot with teachers in school, science teachers sort of all across the levels, elementary through high school. And I'm always surprised so much about how teachers working with under-resourced schools and African American and Latinx communities don't this part of teaching and teaching science is just not something that is at the forefront at all, because of this. A lot of it is because of the standardized testing that we have as well in science, or even at the elementary level. Science is not even very much taught at all. So, or if it is, it's taught as like a special that's maybe once a week. So I definitely can relate, I guess, to that challenge of, how do we bring in culturally relevant teaching, funds of knowledge, and really honor and really have teachers embrace and honor the students and who they are teaching. And I guess sort of a wish for the NARST and the API community. I think for me, it's just nice to be part of this group and to actually have a space to go to, because I don't anywhere else in my professional life. So I'm very thankful, very grateful for this group. And I guess in terms of continuing to have these conversations, maybe meet in person at NARST or wherever, and just, continue just being a community and thinking about who we are and how we want to move forward. I also kind of like the idea too of having critical friends, sharing our work, getting feedback, and all of that stuff.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you.
I can answer both questions as Jessica did, if it's okay.
Sure.
Like, to be honest, like my first very primary motivation to attend this API Scholar meeting is to kind of, I'm struggling to find a network so I can work productively. So I'm still in the process of evolving myself, trying to adjust myself as a very early research like very early junior scholar. So maybe last month I attended a workshop. It's called Building Your Project Network. So it is like in the workshop, they recommend me to connect at every opportunity. So this can increase the chances of building successful relationship through personal engagement with alliance and like similar interests, people with similar interest research. So I consider this as a fresh start to understand how I can connect with scholars in the field of education. And I have kind of a interdisciplinary approach situated in like cultural and social and ecological problems mostly. And I wanted to attend this, be a part of this community to learn how I can maximize international networking with peers and more experienced scholars in initiating international research collaboration, because I'm in kind of a I'm starting to think about my next step after my postdoc. So trying to find a permanent academic position as I dream of. And in my case, I'm looking for a position in different countries other than my home country to get together with my husband. So this is kind of also a personal issue. I have such motivation. So this panel, like I already feel I'm supported by you, thanks to you. So I also think this is a great start for me to work together and generate new knowledge that would not be possible to obtain without interdisciplinary cooperation. Of course, under the field of science education. So thanks for that.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. So we have 1 minute. Anyone of you, Suwang, Jinlan, Hadi, want to say something about your wishes for the NARST and or API community?
I have a wish. I wish NARST could redefine minority, because like we Asians face and our culture, we face a lot of challenges, and but we try to find a way to survive. But like we are overrepresented in STEM or other related areas. So I'm thinking why like there are probably one or two Asian players in NBA and MLB, why there are no minority and diversity issues in the sport leagues? Why do we never ask blacks or whites are represented in the sports leagues, but we care so much about minorities, but Asians are not included. So I really trying to learn what a minority really means, not a slogan, but something really matters. So I wish NARST could redefine what minority is and how where Asians are. Despite all the challenges we're facing, we're still overrepresented. So that's a little weird to me. That's my wish.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to break the participants and also the panelists and presenters, everybody, into breakout rooms, so you can have more conversations in the breakout room, and we will come back 5 minutes before the end of the meeting. I cannot say the time because the time is so different for each person. So we have about 14-15 minutes for the breakout room, and then we'll come back briefly share one thing from the breakout room conversation. Okay.
So can I share one thing? I think all of us here, because, part of the question about who we are, and also we wanted to be more connected to the other API scholar. So we decided to have a breakout room instead of a whole group conversation, because as a teacher, we know that it is difficult to speak up when we have so many people. So hopefully when you go to the breakout room, first of all, introduce yourself, who you are. And then we also want you to share any thoughts, any idea that resonate with you. And maybe you can find another friend who can say hello when you go to the NARST. And maybe you can find another people who have a shared research interest, so we can re-author who we are as a collective. So we're going to start. Oh, okay. Yeah. You have something to share.
All right, I would like to make a suggestion. I know that we are recording and we can have the screenshot, but I want everybody to be on the screen, because Edna and I were just exchanging messages. It's really rare to see the entire screen of people who look like me.
Thank you.
So I would like to have everybody to put your hair in shape, and then someone is going to take a picture, or just have this screenshot where I will raise my down so that we have a record. It's a very rare.
Okay, I'm taking a screenshot. Thank you, Oki, for that great suggestion. Yeah. Okay, so I also put a few conversation starters in the chat box. Hosang, are you going to go ahead and open up the breakout room?
Yeah, open all room. I believe it's already open. Is it right? Yes, we do have our next event. And thank you so much for joining us today. But this is not the end of our event. We were successful in convincing NARST leadership. So you gotta give us a space for us to having this webinar 3 times throughout this year. So the second event is coming October 25th. The next theme is contemporary API research around the world. We really trying to critically think about this very US-centric science education research. And we believe that there is a lot that we can learn from the API scholars around the world. So we are still in the process of planning the meeting, but we love to have representation from different parts of the world who does API related research or API scholar to come and share this research so we can learn something from them. So those are the events that is coming. So please keep that in mind and share with your colleague and join us if you can. The next event is January, disrupting the narrative about API educators and students. That is going to be coming in January. So hopefully you can continue to join us and be part of this community. And then we do have a feedback, love to get some feedback from all of you so we can improve, organize better next time.